the retired engineer's unexpected visitor. Marcus Chen never expected anything extraordinary to happen in his retirement. After 40 years of designing rocket engines for NASA, he had settled into a quiet life in a small Colorado mountain town, content with his workshop and his elderly golden retriever, Luna. His days followed a comfortable routine. Morning coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise paint the Rockies, afternoons tinkering with small engineering projects, and evenings stargazing through his beloved telescope. That routine shattered on a crisp autumn evening when the stars began to dance. Marcus was adjusting his telescope's focus when Luna's ears perked up. The old dog rarely reacted to anything these days, but now she stood alert, tail wagging with unexpected vigor. Before Marcus could wonder why, the stars above began to move in impossible patterns, swirling like fireflies in a cosmic dance. "That's not right," he muttered, checking his telescope's settings. But it wasn't his equipment. The naked eye could see it too. The stars were actually moving, forming complex geometric patterns that his engineer's mind recognized as oddly mathematical. A soft hum filled the air, making the hairs on his arms stand up. Luna wasn't barking. Instead, she sat calmly, as if expecting an old friend. The humming grew louder, and the air in front of Marcus began to shimmer like a heat mirage. The shimmer coalesced into a tall, elegant figure. Marcus stumbled backward, catching himself on his workshop bench. Before Marcus could respond, Luna padded over to Zaraval and sat at their feet, looking up at her owner with trusting eyes. The old dog had always been a good judge of character. "If I agree," Marcus said slowly, "what exactly would that mean?" "You will need to leave Earth, at least for a time. There are others like you, scattered across your planet. Other builders whose genetic memory holds different pieces of the puzzle. We need to gather them, awaken what was lost before the destroyers arrive." Marcus looked around his workshop at the life he'd built, then up at the stars that still danced in impossible patterns. His entire career had been devoted to helping humanity reach those stars. Perhaps this was just a different path to the same goal. The first awakening. The journey from Marcus's mountain workshop to the Cosmic Archives ship was unlike anything human science had imagined. There was no conventional launch, no thundering rockets or crushing G-forces. Instead, reality simply shifted. One moment Marcus stood in his workshop, Zoraval's crystalline hand clasped in his, Luna pressed against his leg. The next, they were standing in a vast chamber that seemed to be made of living light. The walls pulsed with flowing equations and geometric patterns that made perfect sense to some awakening part of his mind. "Welcome to the Mnemosyne," Zoraval said, their crystalline form now glowing brighter in their native environment. A vessel designed to help restore lost knowledge. Luna, surprisingly calm for a dog who'd just been transported across space, padded around the chamber curiously. Marcus watched in amazement as the flowing patterns on the floor adjusted themselves around her paws like ripples in a pond. "First," Zoraval continued, "we must reawaken your builder physiology. Your current form is limited. Limited." Marcus looked down at his aged hands. "I'm an old man. What do you expect?" The crystalline being's lights pulsed in that way Marcus was beginning to recognize as amusement. Age is a construct of linear time. Builders exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Watch. Zoraval waved a hand, and a section of the chamber's wall became reflective. Marcus saw himself, but not as he was. The reflection showed multiple versions of himself overlaid, his current elderly form, but also himself as a young man, as a child, and something else, something more. "That's impossible," he whispered, but even as he spoke, equations describing exactly how it was possible began flowing through his mind. "Your consciousness is remembering," Zoraval observed. "Now your body must follow. This may be uncomfortable." Before Marcus could ask what that meant, energy began flowing from the chamber's walls into his body. It didn't hurt exactly, but the sensation was overwhelming. He felt like every cell in his body was being rewritten, reconfigured according to patterns that existed outside normal space-time. Luna whined softly and pressed against his leg, offering comfort. Through the cascade of sensation, Marcus felt grateful for her steady presence. The transformation lasted what felt like hours, but might have been minutes. Time seemed to flow strangely in his place. When it finally subsided, Marcus stood straighter than he had in decades. His joints no longer ached. His vision was sharper than it had ever been, able to perceive spectrums of light he'd never known existed. The reflection showed a man in his prime, but with subtle differences. His eyes now held traces of the same crystalline quality as Zaraval's, and faint patterns of light flowed beneath his skin. "The physical restoration is only the beginning," Zaraval said. "Now we must reawaken your builder knowledge." They led Marcus to the center of the chamber, where complex geometric shapes hung in the air like holographic sculptures. "These are the basic patterns of reality, the language builders use to reshape matter and energy. Your mind already knows them. Let them in." Marcus reached out to touch one of the floating symbols. The moment his fingers made contact, knowledge flooded his consciousness. He saw how matter was merely frozen energy, how space and time were simply different expressions of the same fundamental force. Most importantly, he saw how it could all be manipulated by one who understood the proper patterns. "This is incredible," he breathed, watching as equations for faster-than-light travel, anti-gravity, and energy manipulation danced through his mind. All this time, humanity had this knowledge locked away inside us. "The destroyers forced your species to forget," Zaraval explained. "It was the only way to survive their purge. But they left traces, in your dreams, in your art, in the intuitive leaps of your scientists. Every human discovery of the past millennia has been a fragment of builder knowledge trying to resurface." Marcus thought of his lifelong fascination with rocket engines, how certain designs had always felt right even when he couldn't explain why. "That's why NASA's designs felt familiar when I first saw them. Some part of me remembered older versions." "Exactly. But what your species has rediscovered is a fraction of what you once knew. The destroyers are returning, and we need the builder's full knowledge to stop them." A new pattern appeared in the air, more complex than the others, shifting in ways that hurt to look at. "This," Zaraval said, "is the signature of the destroyer's approach. They consume reality itself, breaking down the fundamental patterns that hold existence together. Only builders ever developed effective countermeasures." Marcus studied the pattern, and knowledge of ancient battles flooded his mind. He saw vast fleets of builder ships holding the line against entropy itself, using their understanding of reality's patterns to repair the damage the destroyers inflicted on space-time. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Months, perhaps. We must find others like you, humans whose genetic memory holds different aspects of builder knowledge. Each builder specialized in different pattern sets. You understand matter and energy, but we need those who remember the patterns of life, of consciousness, of space-time itself." Luna barked suddenly, drawing their attention. The patterns in the chamber's walls had begun flowing faster, forming urgent configurations. "Ah," Zaraval's lights pulsed with concern. "It seems we have less time than expected. We've detected another potential builder awakening, but something is interfering with the process." "Where?" "Tokyo. A quantum physicist named Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Her work with string theory has been unconsciously accessing builder patterns, but the destroyers may have noticed. We must reach her before they do." Marcus looked at his transformed reflection once more, then at Luna, who wagged her tail expectantly. "Well, old girl, ready for a trip to Japan." The chamber's patterns shifted, preparing for another reality translation. Marcus felt knowledge continuing to flood back, each returned memory making him more aware of how much humanity had lost, and how much they needed to remember before the destroyers arrived. As space began to bend around them, Marcus realized that his retirement project of building small robots in his workshop had been replaced by something far more ambitious. helping rebuild humanity's lost legacy, one awakened builder at a time. The walls of the Mnemosyne blurred as reality shifted, carrying them toward Tokyo and the next piece of the puzzle that might save existence itself. Quantum awakening in Tokyo. The neon lights of Tokyo's Akihabara district blur through the evening rain as Marcus, Zaraval, and Luna materialized in a quiet alley. The Cosmic Archive's translation technology had given Marcus perfect understanding of Japanese, another gift that would have seemed impossible mere hours ago. Dr. Tanaka's laboratory is in the basement of the Tokyo Institute of Advanced Physics, Zaraval said, their crystalline form now cloaked to appear human, though their height and ethereal grace still drew curious glances from passers-by. She's working late tonight, as always. Marcus felt the builder patterns flowing through the city. Beneath the modern technology and flashing signs, ancient equations pulsed through the very foundations of Tokyo. But there was something else, something wrong. Dark distortions in reality's fabric, like cracks spreading through ice. The destroyer's influence is already here, he observed, watching invisible fractures spread through space-time. How are normal humans not seeing this? They see the effects without understanding the cause, Zaraval explained as they walked. Unexplained equipment failures, quantum experiments producing impossible results, brief glimpses of things that shouldn't exist. The destroyers corrupt reality itself. They reached the Institute, a modern glass and steel structure that hummed with more than just electrical energy. Luna's fur stood on end as they approached. She could sense it too. The security guard at the desk barely glanced at the credentials Zaraval manifested from pure energy. The elevator ride to the basement was tense. Marcus could feel reality's distortions growing stronger, concentrating around their destination. When the doors opened, they found a scene of controlled chaos. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's quantum research lab was filled with humming equipment and holographic displays showing mathematical formulas that would have seemed incomprehensible to Marcus just yesterday. Now he recognized them as corrupted builder patterns, knowledge trying to resurface but twisted by the destroyer's influence. Dr. Tanaka herself stood in the center of it all, a woman in her 40s with streaks of silver in her black hair, frantically adjusting equipment as reality flickered around her. She looked up as they entered, her eyes wide with recognition she couldn't possibly have. "You're like me," she said in Japanese, staring at Marcus. "You see the patterns too." Before anyone could respond, one of her quantum measuring devices exploded in a shower of sparks. The air itself began to tear, revealing something that hurt to look at, a writhing mass of anti-patterns that consumed light and logic alike. "Get down," Marcus shouted, builder instincts taking over. He threw up a pattern shield just as the tear in reality widened. Through it came something that shouldn't exist, a destroyer probe, its form constantly shifting between states of matter and energy. Luna growled, but this was no ordinary threat she could chase away. The probe began consuming everything it touched, breaking down matter into its component patterns and corrupting them. "Dr. Tanaka," Zaraval called out, their human disguise falling away. "Your research has drawn their attention. You've been unconsciously accessing builder knowledge through your quantum experiments. We must complete your awakening now, or the probe will consume everything." Yuki nodded, her scientific mind rapidly accepting the impossible situation. "The patterns in my quantum calculations, they're not theoretical at all, are they? They're memories." "Yes." Marcus reached out his hand to her, "and we need those memories now." As equipment continued exploding around them, Yuki took Marcus's hand. Zaraval placed crystalline hands on both their shoulders, and builder energy surged through the connection. Yuki gasped as knowledge flooded back, not of matter and energy like Marcus, but of quantum states and probability manipulation. The transformation that had taken hours for Marcus happened in seconds for Yuki, driven by desperate need. Her form shifted, age falling away, patterns of light flowing beneath her skin. When she opened her eyes, they held the same crystalline quality as Marcus's. The destroyer probe lunged at them, but Yuki raised her hand instinctively. Reality itself seemed to stutter, probability waves collapsing around the probe, trapping it in a quantum loop of its own corrupted patterns. "Marcus," she called out, strain evident in her voice, "I can hold it, but I can't destroy it. That's your specialty." Understanding flowed between them, her mastery of quantum patterns creating an opening for his knowledge of energy manipulation. Marcus reached out, builder equations flowing through his mind, and began breaking down the probe's anti-patterns. The probe writhed as its own reality-consuming nature was turned against it. In moments, it collapsed in on itself, leaving only a small burn mark on the laboratory floor. Silence fell, broken only by the hum of surviving equipment and Luna's relieved whine. "Well," Yuki said, examining her transformed hands with scientific curiosity, "I suppose this explains why my quantum equations never quite followed classical physics. Your research is getting dangerously close to rediscovering builder technology," Zaraval explained. It drew their attention. "There will be more probes, and worse." Yuki nodded, already accepting her new reality with remarkable calm. "The patterns I'm remembering. They're about probability manipulation, quantum entanglement across galaxies. I can see how it all connects now." "We need that knowledge," Marcus said. "My understanding of matter and energy, combined with your quantum expertise, it's just the beginning of what humanity needs to remember." "There are others?" Yuki asked, even as more knowledge continued flooding back. "Many," Zaraval confirmed. "A geneticist in Brazil who's about to remember biological pattern manipulation. A mathematician in Egypt rediscovering space-time architectures. But we must hurry. The probe's destruction will draw attention." As if in response, reality shuddered around them. Through the lab's windows, they could see the night sky beginning to distort. "They're coming, aren't they?" Yuki asked, watching probability patterns shift in ways that spelled disaster. "The ones who made us forget." "Yes." Marcus helped her gather a few essential items as Zaraval prepared for another translation. "But this time, humanity remembers how to fight back." Luna pressed against both their legs, offering comfort as reality began to bend around them. The last thing they saw before the translation took effect was the Tokyo's skyline beginning to ripple like a mirage, the destroyer's influence growing stronger. But now there were two awakened builders ready to face it, with more to come. The race to restore humanity's lost knowledge had become a sprint, with the fate of reality itself hanging in the balance. As the Mnemosyne's patterns wrapped around them, Marcus saw Yuki's eyes light up with the same determination he felt. Together, they had taken the first real step toward humanity's awakening. The question was, would it be enough? The pattern weavers unite. The Mnemosyne's central chamber had transformed, now hosting a three-dimensional map of Earth with glowing points marking potential builders. Marcus and Yuki, both fully awakened to that ancient knowledge, watched as more dark fractures spread across the holographic globe. "The destroyers are accelerating their approach," Yuki observed, her quantum-enhanced senses tracking probability waves. "We have maybe 48 hours before full manifestation." "Then we split up," Marcus decided, builder patterns flowing beneath his skin. "Zaraval, can the Mnemosyne maintain multiple translation points simultaneously?" The crystalline being's lights pulsed affirmatively. "With two awakened builders powering it, yes. But it will be dangerous. The destroyers will detect any large-scale pattern manipulation." Luna, who had adapted remarkably well to her new interdimensional lifestyle, barked at a particularly bright point on the map, Cairo, Egypt. Dr. Hassan, Zaraval confirmed. Her work in theoretical mathematics has brought her closest to remembering space-time architecture patterns. But she's also the most vulnerable. The destroyers will prioritize preventing her awakening. "I'll take Cairo," Marcus volunteered. "My energy manipulation can counter their direct attacks." "Yuki, you and Zaraval should head to Brazil. Dr. Rodriguez's genetic research facility is showing quantum fluctuations that only you can stabilize." Yuki nodded, probability calculations already running through her mind. The chances of simultaneous successful awakenings are better if we split up. She hesitated, showing the first uncertainty since her transformation. Be careful, Marcus. Something about the pattern distortions in Cairo feels wrong. They shared a look of understanding. In the short time since their awakenings, a connection had formed between them, fellow pioneers in humanity's re-emergence. The chamber hummed as the Mnemosyne prepared for parallel translations. Before the split, Zaraval shared one last warning. Remember, each builder awakening will draw more attention. The destroyers remember how dangerous humanity can be. They'll throw everything they have at stopping us. Marcus knelt to scratch Luna's ears. Stay with Yuki, old friend. She'll need your special brand of support. The dog whined but obeyed, moving to sit beside her new charge. Reality bent, and Marcus found himself in a Cairo University office as Yuki and the others translated to Brazil. Night was falling over the ancient city, and he could see the pyramids in the distance, structures that, he now realized, incorporated builder patterns in their very geometry. Dr. Amara Hassan sat at her desk, surrounded by holographic displays showing mathematical formulas that made his newly awakened mind sing. She looked up as he entered, her dark eyes sharp with recognition. "You're not security," she said in Arabic, which Marcus now understood perfectly. "You're something else, like the equations that have been haunting my dreams." "Those aren't just equations," Marcus began, but a violent shudder ran through reality itself. Through the office windows, he saw the sky beginning to tear open, revealing the void between dimensions. "They're coming," Amara whispered, staring at the mathematical impossibility unfolding above her city. "I've seen them in my calculations. They want to stop us from remembering." The air filled with a sound like shattering glass as multiple destroyer probes materialized. These were larger than the one in Tokyo, that anti-pattern fields already beginning to break down the building's structure. Marcus threw up energy shields as Amara scrambled back. "Dr. Hassan, we have minutes at most. Your mathematical insights aren't theoretical. They're memories of how humanity once built and manipulated space-time itself. We need you to remember." She reached out and touched one of his pattern shields, her eyes widening as equations flooded her mind. "These formulas, they're familiar, like a language I used to speak." The awakening began, but the destroyers pressed their attack. Marcus fought to maintain his shields as reality itself began to warp. Through his builder senses, he felt Yuki and Zaraval facing similar resistance in Brazil. The enemy was learning, adapting. Amara's transformation accelerated as the attack intensified. Her form shifted, ancient knowledge returning in a rush. The mathematical displays around her desk began to move, forming three-dimensional patterns that bent space itself. "I remember," she gasped, her eyes now showing the same crystalline quality as her fellow builders. "I remember how to fold space, how to weave time itself." Working together, they drove back the destroyer probes. Marcus's energy manipulation combined with Amara's space-time architectures created defenses the enemy couldn't easily breach. As the last probe shattered, Marcus received a quantum message from Yuki, success in Brazil. Dr. Rodriguez had awakened to his knowledge of biological patterns. But their victories had come at a cost. The sky above Cairo was now visibly torn, interdimensional rifts spreading like cracks in a windshield. Similar damage was appearing worldwide as the destroyers abandoned subtlety for all-out assault. "They're scared," Amara observed, watching probability curves shift through mathematical patterns only she could fully comprehend. They remember what humanity was capable of, what we're becoming again. Marcus nodded, feeling the power of three awakened builders resonating across the planet. "Can you get us back to the Mnemosyne? We need to coordinate with the others." Amara smiled, her hands already weaving complex spatial equations. "Better than that. I remember how to create builder architecture. We need a base of operations, something that can withstand what's coming." Reality folded around them as Amara enacted knowledge older than the pyramids. When it settled, They stood in a vast structure that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its geometry defying normal physics. "The others are already here," she said as Yuki, Dr. Rodriguez, and Zaraval materialized with Luna. "I've created a space where we can plan our next move. The destroyers can't easily breach builder architecture." The newly awakened Dr. Rodriguez, now young again and glowing with biological pattern energy, looked around in wonder. Incredible. And this is just the beginning of what humanity once could do. "The beginning," Zaraval confirmed as they all gathered around a central platform. "But we need more. There are others out there close to remembering. A quantum physicist in Russia, a consciousness researcher in Australia, a temporal theorist in Canada. Each holds a piece of the knowledge we need. And we have less time than ever," Yuki added, probability streams flowing around her. "The destroyers will launch their main assault within 24 hours. They'll try to corrupt Earth's fundamental patterns before we can fully awaken." Marcus watched the growing rifts in reality through the architecture's quantum windows. "Then we work fast. 4 builders might not be enough to save the world. But we know where to find more." Amara finished, her mathematical patterns already plotting courses through space-time. "And this time, humanity remembers how to fight back." Luna barked in agreement as they prepared for their next mission. The race to reawaken humanity's true potential had become a sprint against apocalypse itself. But with each recovered memory, each restored builder, hope grew stronger. The greatest question remained: could they restore enough of humanity's lost knowledge in time to face what was coming? The final hours. Amara's multi-dimensional architecture hummed with power as the awakened builders coordinated their global defense. Through quantum windows, they watched reality fracturing around the planet. The destroyer's full invasion was approaching faster than expected. The Australian consciousness researcher, Dr. Sarah Chen, is showing signs of spontaneous awakening, Yuki reported, probability streams flowing around her. The destroyer's presence is triggering dormant memories. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring biological patterns across the globe, nodded. Same with Dr. Dmitry Volkov in Russia. Their pattern recognition is accelerating, but so is the corruption. Marcus studied the tactical display Amara had created. Red lines of degrading reality crisscross the globe, centered on major population centers. They're not just targeting potential builders anymore. They're trying to break down Earth's fundamental patterns. Luna whined, sensing the growing wrongness in reality's fabric. Zaraval's crystalline form pulsed with urgent light. "We must split up again. 4 teams, simultaneous awakenings. It's dangerous, but we have no choice." "I've calculated the optimal pairings," Amara said, mathematical patterns swirling around her. "Marcus and I will take Australia. His energy manipulation and my space-time architecture give us the best defense against direct attacks." "Yuki and Dr. Rodriguez to Russia," Zaraval continued. "Your quantum and biological expertise may be crucial. Dr. Volkov's research involves consciousness transference, a key builder technology." "What about the temporal theorist in Canada?" Marcus asked, watching more rifts tear open above Toronto. "No time," Yuki said grimly. "Probability streams show the destroyers launching their main assault in 6 hours. We focus on the awakenings we can achieve." They prepared for translation, but before they could move, reality shuddered violently. Through the quantum windows, they watched in horror as the moon's surface began to crack, dark energy pouring from the fissures. "They're using the moon as a pattern amplifier," Amara realized, her mathematical senses reading the impossible equations, converting it into a reality corruption device. "Can we stop it?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. Marcus's builder knowledge provided the answer. "Not without more help. We need Sarah and Dmitry awakened now." They split up, reality bending around them as Amara's architecture translated them to their targets. Marcus and Amara materialized in a Sydney research facility where Dr. Sarah Chen worked on consciousness studies. They found her in her lab, surrounded by neural imaging displays that showed more than just brain activity. They revealed patterns of consciousness itself. She looked up as they entered, her eyes already showing signs of pre-awakening. "The patterns are screaming," she said without preamble. "Reality itself is in pain. Show me how to help." Before they could respond, the destroyers struck. The lab's windows shattered as anti-pattern energy poured in, trying to prevent another awakening. But this time the builders were ready. Amara quickly constructed a space-time bubble around them, while Marcus channeled energy shields. Dr. Chen watched with growing understanding as builder patterns became visible around them. "The consciousness patterns I've been studying," she said, reaching out to touch the energy fields. "They're not just neural networks. They're something older, something bigger. They're who we really are," Marcus explained as he fought to maintain the shields. Humanity wasn't meant to be confined to the physical consciousness alone. We were pattern swimmers in the sea of reality itself. Sarah's awakening began, her form shifting as ancient knowledge returned. But something was different this time. As consciousness patterns flowing through her, they resonated with every human mind in range. "She's a consciousness architect," Amara realized. "One who could link builder minds together, amplify their power." Through their quantum link, they felt Yuki and Dr. Rodriguez succeeding in Russia. Dr. Volkov's awakening unlocked temporal pattern manipulation, the ability to locally slow or speed up time itself. But even as their victories mounted, the situation grew dire. The moon continued to crack, its surface now more void than matter. Reality degradation accelerated worldwide. "Link us," Marcus told the newly awakened Sarah. "All of us, like we used to do." Sarah nodded, her crystalline eyes now glowing with inner light. Her consciousness patterns expanded, connecting all 6 builders across the planet. Their combined knowledge flowed together: matter, energy, quantum states, biology, space-time, consciousness, and temporal manipulation. Through their linked minds, they saw the full scope of the destroyer invasion. Vast entities of anti-pattern were approaching from between dimensions, drawn by humanity's reawakening. "Now we remember," Sarah whispered, her voice echoing through their connected consciousness. "This is how we fought them before, not as individuals, but as one mind with many patterns." Together, they reached out to the corrupted moon. Marcus's energy patterns provided the power, Yuki's quantum manipulation shaped probability itself, Dr. Rodriguez's biological patterns protected them from corruption, Amara's space-time architecture created the framework, Sarah's consciousness link held them together, and Dmitri's temporal manipulation gave them the time they needed. Builder energy surged from Earth toward the moon, visible to every human eye as auroras of impossible colors. Through their linked minds, they began the greatest pattern-weaving humanity had attempted in 10,000 years. But even as they worked, they knew this was just the beginning. The destroyer's main force approached, and 6 builders, no matter how well coordinated, might not be enough to stop them. "There are others," Sarah said through their link. "My consciousness patterns can sense them. Millions of humans on the edge of remembering. We just need to show them how." Marcus felt hope surge through their connection. "Then let's remind humanity who they really are." As the 6 builders fought to reclaim the moon, their combined consciousness began reaching out to every human mind on Earth. The greatest mass awakening in history was about to begin, if they could hold the destroyers back long enough to complete it. Luna, watching from the safety of Amara's architecture, barked encouragement as reality itself hung in the balance. The next few hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but humanity's chance to reclaim their cosmic legacy. The true battle for humanity's soul was about to begin. When humanity remembered, the linked consciousness of 6 builders reached across the globe like a web of light, touching sleeping memories in millions of human minds. Through their connection, they felt the first stirrings of mass awakening, doctors suddenly understanding biological patterns, engineers glimpsing energy equations, artists recognizing geometric truths older than time. "It's working," Sarah broadcasted through their mental link, her consciousness architecture strengthening. The patterns are resonating with dormant memories. People are beginning to remember. But the destroyers sensed the change. The void between dimensions tore open wider as their main force arrived, vast entities of anti-pattern that dwarfed their earlier probes. The moon, still crackling with dark energy despite the builders' intervention, turned black as space itself began to warp. They're trying to accelerate reality's corruption, Mitri warned, his temporal patterns detecting distortions in time itself. We have minutes before the pattern decay becomes irreversible. Through their shared consciousness, they coordinated a desperate plan. Marcus and Yuki focused on maintaining energy and quantum shields around major population centers. Amara and Mitri worked to stabilize spacetime itself. Dr. Rodriguez guided the biological aspects of mass awakening, while Sarah kept their consciousness network expanding. Humanity's response began slowly, then accelerated. A teenager in Brazil suddenly understood how to weave biological patterns, healing her entire neighborhood. A farmer in Kenya activated dormant energy manipulation abilities, protecting his village from reality decay. A librarian in Norway remembered how to read time itself. Luna, still safely housed in Amara's architecture, howled as she sensed the change in human consciousness. Her canine awareness, enhanced by proximity to build-up energy, recognized the revival of ancient bonds between all living things. But the destroyers pressed their assault. Anti-pattern tentacles larger than cities reached down through the atmosphere, attempting to corrupt Earth's fundamental geometry. Where they touched, reality began to unravel. We need more time, Sarah projected. The mass awakening is spreading, but too slowly. That's when they felt it, a new consciousness joining their link. Dr. Emily Chen, the temporal theorist from Canada they hadn't had time to reach, had awakened spontaneously. Her understanding of time's deeper patterns flooded their shared awareness. The time streams, she communicated, they're not just flowing one way. We can use the past to save the future. Through their combined consciousness, they understood. Emily's temporal patterns, amplified by their connection, could create a bubble of altered time around Earth, not stopping time, but allowing the mass awakening to recede faster relative to the destroyer's assault. It was dangerous. Manipulating time on a planetary scale could shatter reality as badly as the destroyers themselves, but they had no choice. The 7 builders, now linked stronger than ever, began the most complex pattern weaving in human history. Emily's temporal manipulation created the framework, while the others reinforced it with their specialized knowledge. Through their shared consciousness, millions of awakening humans contributed instinctively, adding their remembering strength to the pattern. Time shifted. In the bubble of altered reality they created, humanity's awakening accelerated. Seconds stretched into subjective hours as dormant memories surfaced worldwide. Children remembered how to sing to plants and make them grow. Grandmothers recalled how to weave light into solid forms. Scientists finally understood the equations that had haunted their dreams. The destroyers, sensing the temporal manipulation, redoubled their assault. Anti-pattern energy poured from the corrupted moon, trying to break through the time bubble. Reality groaned under the strain of opposing forces. That's when humanity truly remembered who they were. All across the planet, awakened humans began adding their patterns to the builders' defense. Energy manipulators reinforced Marcus's shields. Quantum specialists helped Yuki stabilize probability. Biological pattern weavers strengthened living systems against corruption. Space-time architects helped Amara maintain dimensional integrity. Consciousness linkers amplified Sarah's network. Temporal manipulators supported Emily's time bubble. The destroyer's assault met not just 7 builders, but a planet of reawakening pattern weavers. Luna barked in triumph as the tide began to turn. The corrupted moon, under the combined pattern manipulation of millions of awakened humans, began to cleanse itself. Reality's fabric, reinforced by countless space-time architects, started to heal. The destroyers, facing the full power of an awakened humanity, began to retreat. Their anti-pattern tentacles withdrew from Earth's atmosphere, their void rifts starting to close. But victory came with a price. The strain of planetary temporal manipulation and mass consciousness linking had consequences. As the time bubble began to dissolve, the 7 primary builders felt reality preparing to snap back into normal flow. Brace for temporal recoil, Emily warned through their link. When time realigns, there will be adjustments. Reality itself will need time to adapt to humanity's reawakening, Amara added, her mathematical patterns calculating the implications. The patterns we've woven will hold, but the world will be forever changed. As time began to normalize, they felt the consciousness links starting to fade, but the connections it had awakened, human to human, mind to mind, pattern to pattern, would remain. Humanity had remembered not just their powers, but their fundamental interconnectedness. The destroyers retreated through their void rifts, but everyone knew this wasn't the end. They would return, perhaps with new methods of attacking reality itself, but next time humanity would be ready. As the time bubble finally dissolved and normal reality reasserted itself, Luna padded over to Marcus, still somehow maintaining her calm in the face of humanity's transformation. Through the quantum windows of Amara's architecture, they watched the sun rise over a changed Earth. Millions of awakened humans were already beginning to repair reality's damage, their combined pattern weaving visible as auroras of impossible colors. The moon, cleansed of corruption, shone with renewed light, and in every human mind, ancient memories continued to surface. The age of forgotten humanity was over. The age of the builders had begun again. But even as they celebrated this victory, the 7 primary builders knew their work was just beginning. Humanity would need guidance to handle their reawakened powers responsibly. The destroyers would return, and reality itself would need time to adjust to the presence of billions of conscious pattern weavers. Luna wagged her tail, somehow understanding that her quiet life in a mountain workshop with Marcus had transformed into something far greater. Like humanity itself, she had become part of a larger pattern. The real question was, what would humanity build with their remembered powers? And would they be ready when the destroyers returned? A new dawn. 3 months after humanity's mass awakening, Marcus stood in his transformed mountain workshop, now a training center for new builders. The simple workbench where he once fixed agricultural drones had become a pattern-weaving station. Energy equations flown through the air as he taught young students to manipulate reality's fundamental forces. Luna dozed in her usual spot, though her cushion now floated slightly off the ground, a side effect of constant exposure to builder energy. Through the quantum-enhanced windows, he could see the changed world outside. The Colorado Rockies shimmered with new builder architecture, crystalline structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The sky above held patterns visible only to awakened eyes, safety networks woven by millions of human pattern shapers. Still teaching the basics, Yuki's voice came from behind him as she translated into the workshop, probability waves rippling around her arrival. Some things never change. Everyone needs to start somewhere, Marcus smiled, dismissing his students for the day. Even with awakened memories, control takes practice. The other primary builders, as the original 7 had come to be known, regularly gathered to coordinate humanity's transformation. Each had taken on specific responsibilities in guiding their reawakened species. Sarah's consciousness network detected something interesting, Yuki said, bringing up a holographic display of quantum probability streams. Patterns we've never seen before, out past the Kuiper Belt. Not destroyers, but something else. More ancient species remembering themselves. Marcus wondered. The human awakening had sent ripples through the galaxy, stirring long-dormant memories in other civilizations. Possibly. Dimitri and Emily are investigating the temporal implications. But that's not why I'm here. Yuki's expression turned serious. We found another one. A builder archive buried under the Sahara. Amara's space-time scans confirmed it. Marcus felt a familiar excitement. Despite their recovered memories, much of humanity's ancient knowledge remained lost. Each discovered archive helped fill in the gaps, teaching them more about who they had been and could be again. Dr. Rodriguez translated in, his biological patterns immediately adjusting to the workshop's environment. "The archive is strange," he reported. "The patterns are different from anything we found before. We need all 7 of us to unlock it safely." Within minutes, the remaining primary builders arrived. Sarah's consciousness architecture immediately linked their minds, while Emily's temporal manipulation created a bubble of slow time around them for better concentration. Amara's space-time calculations plotted the quickest route to the archive. "The world has changed so much," Sarah observed through their link as they prepared for translation. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing, awakening everyone so quickly." They all understood her concern. The mass awakening had transformed human civilization overnight. Cities had been rebuilt with builder geometry. Transportation happened through pattern translation rather than vehicles. Diseases were cured by biological pattern weavers. Food was grown by children who sang to plants in languages older than time. But with great power came great responsibility. Not everyone handled the awakening well. Some refused to accept their new abilities, clinging to the old ways. Others tried to use pattern weaving for personal gain, requiring the establishment of new laws and ethical frameworks. "We gave humanity back their birthright," Marcus said firmly. "What they do with it is up to them. All we can do is guide and teach." Luna barked in agreement, her own consciousness touched by months of exposure to build-up energy. Sometimes Marcus wondered if she understood more than any of them. Zara Val, who had remained on Earth as an advisor, joined them for the archive expedition. "The Cosmic Archive has detected increased activity in the void between dimensions," they reported. "The destroyers are rebuilding their forces." "Let them come," Dr. Rodriguez said with quiet confidence. "Humanity remembers how to defend itself now." Together, they translated to the Sahara location. The archive lay buried beneath ancient sands, its patterns dormant but intact. As they began the delicate process of awakening its knowledge, Marcus reflected on how far they'd come. The 7 of them had started this journey as ordinary humans: a retired engineer, a quantum physicist, a mathematician, a geneticist, a consciousness researcher, a temporal theorist, and an unexpected ally. Now they stood as guides for a transformed species, teaching humanity to rewrite the very fabric of reality. The archive responded to their combined pattern weaving, its ancient knowledge beginning to surface. But what they found inside wasn't just historical records or technical specifications. It was a message left by their ancestors before the first forgetting. As the message played through their linked consciousness, they understood at last the full scope of humanity's role in the cosmos. They weren't just builders of technology and manipulators of reality. They were pattern weavers for the universe itself, tasked with maintaining the fundamental harmonies that kept existence stable. The destroyers weren't simply enemies. They were the ultimate entropy, the force of universal decay that required constant opposition, the eternal dance between creation and destruction, with humanity as reality's immune system. "We need to show this to everyone," Sarah said as the message ended. "Help them understand not just how to use their powers, but why we have them." Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of it resonate through their link. "We're not just remembering who we were," he realized. "We're remembering who we need to become." As they emerged from the archive, they found a crowd of awakened humans had gathered, drawn by the concentration of builder energy. Young pattern weavers practicing their skills, older ones helping maintain reality's new frameworks, all part of humanity's renewed purpose. Luna padded over to a group of children who were learning to read biological patterns, her tail wagging as they giggled at the simple light constructs she had learned to create. Even man's best friend was evolving alongside them. The primary builders shared a look of understanding. Their work was far from over. The destroyers would return. Other challenges would arise. But humanity had remembered not just their powers, but their responsibility to existence itself. As the African sun set behind them, casting builder patterns in golden light, Marcus smiled. His quiet retirement had become something far greater, a role in humanity's greatest awakening. And somewhere in the void between dimensions, the destroyers were about to learn that the species they had forced to forget had finally remembered who they were. The universe itself seemed to hum with anticipation as humanity stepped into their new role as guardians of reality's patterns. The age of forgetting was over. The age of remembering had just begun.